It may surprise people to learn that when it comes to depression, men tend to suffer from it more frequently than women. The percentages studies are showing are greater. Some studies showing as high as about 40% of men at any one time are wrestling with some form or degree of depression. Now, generally speaking, as a society, we tend to think of it as an issue that women tend to deal with, but I'm seeing a greater increase and more clients coming in, male clients coming in, who that is really the issue they're dealing with. They don't know it when they're showing up in my office and sitting on the couch. But as we begin to talk and converse and start exploring the issues they're dealing with, what comes to the surface is really, at heart, depression. A lot of times in American culture, we think the man is supposed to be strong, the man is the rock, the man is the one that we're to look to, and he's supposed to be emotionally steady all the time. And that can be true. Men can try to live up to those societal expectations, right or wrong. But when they start dealing with stuff that's beyond their own ability to handle those things, who do they turn to? And so a lot of those emotions, a lot of that frustration and anger and tiredness can start turning inward and turns into depression. How does a man even know that he's depressed? For men, studies show it doesn't have the typical symptoms that we see on the drug commercials on TV, of shuffling around in your bathrobe and laying on the couch and eating everything in sight. While that does show up for some men, and that's how depression does manifest, a lot of times one of the greatest indicators of depression in men is anger. That will show up as they become more bossy, they become more irritable, they have a much shorter fuse, they seem more intolerant. Or a lot of men will describe it as, I just feel really frustrated, nothing makes me happy, nothing is satisfying anymore. And sometimes it can get mixed up with what gets labeled midlife crisis. And studies do seem to corroborate that, back that up, that depression for men will show up in their 40s and 50s, whereas for women it shows up in their teens and 20s. Men, whether it doesn't start showing up until then, or that's when they finally start realizing everything I've been doing to cope with this my whole life is no longer working, so now I'm going to reach out for help. Sometimes those symptoms and depression in men will go not completely unrecognized, but can be misdiagnosed upwards into their 60s and 70s, because we'll look at anxiety, we'll look at health issues, we'll look at, well, you just need a career change, or this is a phase of life change, when in fact all along it's depression. Women, on the other hand, tend to show up sooner for treatment in what they're dealing with than men tend to. So that may be some of the skewing of the results, but a lot of times what brings men in is they feel like life's no longer working, their spouse or their significant other is the one saying, look, you're getting unlivable. You need to go see someone. Either you do this or blah, blah, blah. A lot of men, you can hardly get them to go to the doctor if they break their leg. Getting them to come in and talk about their feelings is even more difficult sometimes. But when they do finally come in and realize it's not them, it's not a sign of weakness, it's not a lack of manhood, it's not some big negative thing that is handicapping their life, but it has a label, it has hope, it has treatment. I watch men's expressions and I watch their lives change. It's like they can exhale. And so part of what the therapeutic relationship is around depression is teaching better coping skills. And it's coping skills that sometimes brings men in to treatment, increased in drinking, working more, staying away from home, withdrawing, avoiding. One of the big ones, and I could probably get a lot of amens from some of the family members, is disappearing into TV. The TV is constantly on. It's mindless TV. It's not just the big games, it's every game. It's every infomercial, constantly watching TV, difficulty sleeping. Sometimes other issues can show up that become issues unto themselves, increase in porn viewing, increase in the types of foods, bad, fatty, sugary foods that are eaten. We already mentioned alcohol. So when a man comes in and says that he's noticed an increase in his life, we work with him on producing healthier, responses, healthier coping mechanisms, and then beginning to work on and deal with the root of what might be fueling the depression. Because sometimes that depression can be several years old and it's just gone unrecognized. But there is a big transformation that can take place when a man comes in and for a season, for a time, sits and talks through some of these issues with someone where it's safe, it's confidential, it's not something that is worn like a badge.